Are you ready to perform at your highest potential? Welcome to the Performance Matters podcast from GP Strategies, your talent transformation partner. In each episode, we'll interview industry experts and explore best practices and innovative insights to help your organization improve performance. Listeners, hello, it's your host, Michael Thiel. Welcome back to the Performance Matters podcast. You know, if you're like me, I am most interested and engaged in the process of learning at the point of need. On a personal note, I can't tell you how many times I've scrubbed YouTube while sitting under a leaky sink or when trying to figure out how to, prep a rutabaga or some other need to know now moment. So this begs the question, how do we make sure the resources available to us in our professional lives are as good or hopefully better at helping us thrive and perform at a higher level? That's today's topic, and I'm so fortunate to have two esteemed colleagues in the virtual studio to discuss how to enhance point-of-need learning in your organization, both through strategy and technology. Please welcome back two friends of the show, Ms. Nic Girvan, Learning Director of the GP Leadership and DEI Practice, and Jeff Fissel, GP Strategies' very own Vice President of Technology. Nic and Jeff, welcome. How are you doing?
Doing good, Michael. I'm really pleased to be here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be back and talk about this really exciting topic with you all.
It is a great topic here. Now, before we go too far, Nic, can I have you do a little level set for us? I mean, what is point of need learning and why is it becoming so popular in today's workplace?
Okay, so point of need learning is about accessing the knowledge that you need at the time that you need it. So imagine that you've got to have a vital conversation with somebody. You're not really sure about how to prep it or the best way to go about it. You can't really wait until the next vital conversation training session comes up. I mean, you could, but it's not the best option.
It's like, hey, can you wait? I have a training scheduled on August 15th, right?
Yeah. Let's just not talk till then. I'll know what to do then. But yeah, so the idea of point of need is that rather than doing that, you can take ownership of your learning and go onto the point of need catalog that the company offers. And maybe you access an e-learning or a micro learning or a quick reference guide that has been selected by the organization to say, this is good learning. And here it is right now when you need it. Michael, you just mentioned about your rutabaga prep.
This is true. This is me last week.
Okay, well, this is me in the moment. I had no idea what a rutabaga was. So my point of need is, what is a rutabaga? And Google has just helpfully told me a rutabaga is what we call in Scotland a neep.
Oh, okay, fun. Let me write that one down for future. Neep, huh? Right on.
But that's exactly what point of need learning's about, right? You have that instant gratification of knowledge. You don't want to wait. You know what you need. I don't need to know the history of a rutabaga. I don't even need to know where the word comes from. I just need to know what it is. So that's the value of point of need. And it's becoming more popular because that's how we're conditioned outside of work. We've got things like YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and every other way that you experience videos. So we're expecting the same thing in the workplace. It's about thinking about learning when you need it so that you can practice it immediately. And that means that we can be more efficient. It means we're reducing the downtime. It also means that organizations can be more flexible, right? We've got companies that have so many remote working individuals now. Getting people into a room or getting people scheduled at the same time is a real challenge. So, this is about being flexible. So, it doesn't matter what location you're in, what time zone you're in, what language you are working in. You can access your learning when you need it. And I'm not going to lie, it's cost effective and it's great for your ESG as well. So, your environmental and social governance is nailed.
You're saying a lot of good things here. Now, Jeff, I know that you have been living and breathing technology since you got out of college. Incidentally, Jeff was just honored by his university. What was the award that you won? It was super cool, by the way.
It was inducted into the Academy of Engineering and Computing Excellence as a distinguished alumni. Sounds fancy, right?
Super fancy.
I had to show Jeff a little love on that. I mean, I saw that scrolling through my LinkedIn and I thought that was so cool. But literally, since he got out of college, he's been kind of focusing on this in the world of educational technology. I mean, do you have any additional perspectives on that, Jeff?
Yeah, it's an honor and thank you for calling that out. I think video, like everyone went to YouTube forever. Like your example when you were kicking us off, I went and looked up a video on how to do something. And I think that was a great analog to, okay, I need to do that in work. But sadly, no one had short form video, really. We had lots of hour-long videos because everyone in work, for some reason, wants to record hour-long videos of everything. And sadly, as we track that, no one watched those recordings. So it's about how do you get more value out of those. And there were tools out that let you search into those and deep link and all of that. But in the world of generative AI now, it's completely changed the game because it can now write the answer for me. It can summarize and get that information out to me and generate what I need. So it becomes this interesting thing to me of changing what we actually need to train people on versus what they just need access to that information. Because before we had to teach someone how to do something before they did it. But if access to information is so fast, accurate, and efficient, then do we rethink what we actually need to do those deliberate training moments on? And be more efficient in those as well. We could spend hours talking about that, but I think that's an interesting thing to think about when we're thinking about performance support or just in time training of what information do we want to make available to certain people, and then what do we want to have those deliberately developmental training moments on and focus those on the things that are really valuable and people get the most impact from.
There's so many great opportunities that technology can help us deploy there. Now, Nick, what I'd like you to do then, because you did a great job of pointing out both the benefits and what is point of need learning, but just give me a quick, I don't know if it's like an A B contrast between point of need and traditional learning. So give me the two catalogs here.
Okay, so I'd say that they're quite distinctive and they're representing exactly as Jeff's just mentioned about how the workplace and the learning practice is evolving. So, if we take traditional training methods, these are usually that structured, scheduled approach. As Jeff's just alluded to, it's about preparing somebody, so it's setting them off on that journey. Think classroom settings, lectures, workshops. It's where you're going to go and get that in depth knowledge, and we're going to focus on 4 or 5 different focuses. Point of need learning, though, isn't about that bigger journey. It's about chunking that journey down into smaller topics. And it's all about accessing the bit that is relevant to you. So it's a bit like going back to the example of we used to put out hour-long videos. What were we thinking? But then the bridge between having those hour long and having those 3-minute videos was things like bookmarking. So, when you're watching a video on YouTube and helpfully it's got bookmarks through it, I don't need to know about this topic, or this topic. I'm skipping. So it's that. It is the element of the what you need. That's the initial contrast. But the other part, of course, is the motivation of the learners. So, when we think about traditional offerings in workplace development, we have a catalogue. That catalogue may not change that much, it's scheduled throughout the year. Your manager might tell you to go on this course, you may be voluntold by certain people, um, but it's not really responding to that dynamic need. And that's the difference. So, with point of need, it's all sitting there. Whether you access it or not isn't going to change the virtual learning environments world, but it is going to change yours. So, if you don't do it, no one's doing it for you. So, it is tapping into that adult need to be curious, to own it, and be a little bit more accountable about how we show up in the workplace. The last bit really is around the measurement of the learning. So, when you've got your traditional learning, and the trainers listening to this podcast right now are waiting for me to say happy sheets, feedback, that sort of how did you feel? Did you enjoy yourself? Do you feel confident? And that is lovely for our egos. Like coming out of the classroom, it's a great bit of data to have. But the measurement with point of need is different. And I like to talk about something called your digital footprint. So if I accessed topic 1, what was my topic 2? How did I layer my learning? What did I go to next? How many times have I rewatched that same video and gone back to it? You're starting to build more of an understanding. What are your topics that connect? What are the depths and the layers that people are finding beneficial and useful? And how are we going to use that insight to inform what we're adding to the catalogue? So traditional will always have a place. It's more comprehensive, it gives you that full perspective. But point of need is really agile and it's exciting and it's a lot more dynamic.
I'm super glad you brought up measurement, Nick. We always talked a lot about that. Like, do you track what people are searching for? And most people aren't tracking that metric. And then one step farther, did they find result? Like, did they actually click on what they were searching for? Becomes an amazing metric to see what do people actually need. Or in video world, that's where I came from. You would look at like heat maps in videos, like areas people watched over and over again versus areas people skipped to find those really relevant bits. The technology's been there forever to do this. I just don't think people have really been looking into it as much as they possibly should.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see that there's almost an application from what both of you are saying in point of need. There's almost a thinking like a marketer. You are marketing to your audience. And I can see there, Nick, what you're saying is if someone keeps revisiting something, then you go, wow, either we're really serving them or maybe there's a business need we need to look at. And as Jeff is saying, if the metrics are there on a dashboard where you don't have to coalesce 15 spreadsheets to get to an answer, things get really exciting on that end for sure. No doubt.
It reminds me also a little bit of a sort of a cautionary tale, but one thing we need to think about is that in AI world, we talk a lot about the difference between intelligence and wisdom. So, like, now intelligence is almost cheap. Like, we can get access to all of this information, but it's what do I do with it? And I think, like, a very practical example, like, I've been asked to build a bridge. I'm not a civil engineer. Having generative AI write me a description on how to build a bridge does not mean I should build a bridge or you should drive over it. I think when you're talking about leadership and some of those areas where practice is really important, mentorship, connection, those sort of things, like you still have to very much have those deliberately developmental moments, that in person, live, or virtual live kind of training where people are carving out the time to be deliberate about developing a set of skills, not just having access to the information. Because I think it's so easy to fall in the trap of if everything's accessible so quickly at the point of need, then maybe we don't need to do training anymore. I don't think that's the right answer because you'll have a bunch of people that have very shallow surface level information, and that's going to not help us in the long run.
What I'm hearing from you both here is we have to have a balance. You need the foundational, traditional learning per se, and then a point of need comes in really when it comes to performance here. And that brings me to my next question here. I'm going to direct this one to Nick first is, for organizations that are just starting to explore these trends or they're starting to feel these needs, I mean, what types of quick start recommendations do you have?
I think first acknowledge that whipping up a library of perfectly curated content is daunting. So don't try and eat the whole elephant. Let's try and take it in stages. And I'd say that there's three focuses. Firstly, understand what your workforce really needs. You may want to transform the world, you may want to offer everything, but make it manageable. So ask yourself, what does the organization need right now? And what's going to help in terms of a skills and a development perspective. So don't just do this in isolation. Conduct surveys, considering the influences on your business, both internal and external. And think about performance review data, right? That's the stuff we have so much of. So think about where those skills gaps are so that you can start to tackle those pieces first. Next, I would say it's all about leveraging your existing IP and your design technology. So, what we've really noticed over the past 2, 3 years is that many of our commissioners are coming to training providers like ourselves and they're asking for content rather than facilitated courses. And this is because maybe they don't have the subject matter experts in house, or maybe, like many of us, they're just really pressed and they haven't got the time to get round to designing this content. So we responded to the market back in 2023 with offering something what we call the Content Flex initiative. And this is where our clients can purchase over 70 different topics and they can roll it out into their organization. So it's a great way to extend their budget because they're just paying off that one annual fee, but they're getting hold of that content, and the way in which that they bring that to life is up to them. And that's where that second caveat comes in with the answer. It's about getting smart with technology. How do you get the most out of that IP? Because sure, you can run it as an instructor led course and you can do that over and over. but that's not point of need. How are you going to bring in the point of need element? And that's where you need to think about what technology is out there. How can you create micro assets from your instructor led content? And spoiler alert, we have such technology. So everybody acts surprised in a moment when Jeff fills in that gap. But I'm getting a little bit off track with my answer. So, first, go back to what's the immediate need. Second, think about IP and how you're going to use technology for reformatting. And then thirdly, it really is about whipping up excitement. You know, Promote the culture of continuous learning, measure your impact. Regularly evaluate the effectiveness of your learning. Think about your employee engagement as a result, your talent pipeline. Really get excited and celebrate the idea of learning and the constant evolution of your staff, because it is that motivation, it is that excitement that will make your point of need catalog take off in the first place.
Those are great bits of insight. And, you did mention Content Flex. I'll have to say one of the things that's most exciting to me about that offering is it's about leadership. And leadership is one of those evergreen topics. So that's the type of thing, regardless of what industry you're in. I think there's so much to offer there. And specifically, as you're saying, point of need in terms of I need to go in, I need to double back and look at one thing. Maybe it's what's coaching, what's mentoring, what's that difference? Give me a tip or strategy. Boy, that Content Flex is just a fantastic offering on that. And Jeff, as our technology delegate here, I'm going to ask you about one of the things that Nic had referred to earlier, which is your in-house IP. I think more organizations are starting to realize that they don't want or need more or newer content, but maybe they just want to capitalize on what they already have. So let's shift this to AI. I mean, how can organizations use AI to support these learning design efforts to support point of need learning?
It's a great question and so important now, because if we don't embrace this the right way, we fall victim of just like people going to YouTube before to find out things within my company when I wanted them to go to my intranet. We sort of joke sometimes, no one ever said they wanted to LMS something in their life. Like, that's not a desired behavior we have. So how do we not let that happen here in the world of generative AI, where people will just go to ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini or whatever tool they have access to? And those tools are amazingly powerful, but they're trained and the information they give you is based on what's on the internet, which is great, also a little scary. So, how do you trust the reliability of the output of what's generated with AI? And the best way to do that is to point it towards trusted knowledge bases of content. And Content Flex actually is one of those perfect ones. It's vetted, research driven leadership content that is leading in the industry. And now, if you point AI at it, now it has the ability to surface that in new, interesting ways. Help me build a podcast script. Help me ask a question about that. Help me get answers. And it's always going to cite back to this came off of slide 3 in ILT deck 2 about this topic. So you have that trust in what you're doing, but it can start to pull things together. And that's where I think the power of generative AI can come in, when you can start to point it at trusted data sources that you have on specific topics. And to me, that's just mind opening of like what you could do once you do that.
Absolutely. That's a very positive Pandora's box. Your light bulbs are going off. Like you said, you've got a bank of great data, and then you're like, hey, let's make some iterative things. It's almost like Neo, right, in the Matrix, where you could just imagine something and then pull some data out of his head and that kind of thing. Now, Nic, is that something that you've had some success with already?
I have actually. And I think that's the exciting thing. We're still in relatively early stages when we think of the art of the possible, but we are already using it. Like, I've fed AI content from an instructor led session, and it's given me the opportunity to create a micro learning byproduct from it. It does the homework for me. So, exactly like Jeff just said, it references the slides. Great. I don't need to go through a 100 slide deck. I know exactly where those pinpoints are. It's given me topical conversations. It's given me things to think about. When we think about instructional design, the prep work that would have taken me days just takes me hours. And that's fantastic for unlocking your humans to do something really exciting.
Absolutely. Hey, Jeff. So, for organizations just starting out utilizing AI, those folks that are on Chat GPT or, they're going on to one of those kind of things, and they're maybe looking to enhance their libraries with more point of need learning, what piece of advice would you give them?
For me, I think it's starting with a focused use case. We've seen lots of people get in trouble when you say, point this chatbot at my whole SharePoint and let it start to discover things. Turns out most people aren't good at organizing their SharePoints. And that's when you start to get unreliable answers. And as soon as people start to not trust what comes back in the chat interfaces, you'll lose your audience. So focus on very deliberate, ring-fenced areas on specific topics or specific use cases and start to build the trust with those systems, because they're inherently, people are skeptical today of a lot of generative AI solutions. So build trust on specific use cases and then expand out basically the knowledge bases that those tools have access to over time as you get trust. The boil the ocean approach here typically hasn't worked well for most organizations we're tracking.
And just to add to that, I think the point about trust is really important. AI can do fantastic things, but don't underestimate the value of the human plus the AI element. So AI is going to, like we said, get you started. It's going to funnel your thinking. It's going to do your prep, but use your humans to make those connections, to think about your organization and how that learning is going to land. And of course, bring the thing that AI can't do, which is that human experience, that human insight and the emotion part. So connect the two.
Use it to make your humans better.
Yes, love that.
I mean, the future is human plus AI, but it's the human plus kind of equation of what can we be when we add AI agents or AI capabilities to the people that we have today. And that's, to me, like unlocking the potential even more.
Now, you two have actually been very humble in terms of discussing a couple things, but I just wanted to put this out there. Some of the real power that we're discussing here is using something like a learning focused trained AI platform. Something like, if you haven't seen it, listeners, go to gpstrategies.com, check out Learning Content AIQ. We've got a custom trained AI platform designed for learning professionals where you could feed something like an amazing leadership platform like Content Flex. You put the two together and you've got some magic in terms of the ability to spool out point of need learning. So just a little plug there for our sponsors at GP Strategies there. Hey, Nic and Jeff, I want to just say that this has been a great conversation. We thank you so much for coming in for this short podcast, and please come back again. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
The Performance Matters podcast is brought to you by GP Strategies. Together, we can create a world where business excellence makes possibilities achievable. You can subscribe to the show anywhere you get podcasts or listen on our website at gpstrategies.com.